What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So if you guys have been following along, we've done a few fuel system videos on the GTO here behind me. The first one, we modified the stock tank and basket so that we could run a Walbro 525 pump. Then the second one, we did the hot wire kit so that we could be running a relay and get that load off of the stock wiring system. Today we're going to be finishing up the fuel system. We're going to be putting everything together, getting this thing plumbed, checking for leaks, getting the regulator on, the injectors in, all that good stuff. If you aren't already, please think about subscribing and ringing the bell. It'll keep you up to date on all the GTO, the Duramax, and the HELLCAT content. Let's jump right into it. Alright guys, so we finally got all of our fuel system stuff in. We are waiting on a couple little things like a Y block and some little ORB fittings, but for the most part, pretty much everything is here. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing up on jack stands and get after it. But before we do that, I'm just going to give you guys a quick rundown of everything that we chose to use on this build. So first, as you guys have already seen, we've got the Walbro 525 fuel pump. We've already customized our stock basket to make that fit. Then we have some bulkhead fittings, a whole different assortment here. We've also got a bulkhead fitting here for the wiring that's going to go to the pump. We've got our quantum install kit for the pump itself. We've got some SPELAB, it's SPELAB, not sure how you guys say it, I'm going to call it SPELAB. We've got their PTFE-Lined and fittings for the feed. This is all -8. We've got Deatschwerks 40 amp relay. It is basically a hot wire kit. We're going to use this. This is going to be triggered off of our stock wiring that would have kicked on the factory pump, and then once it kicks this relay on, the wires are a lot bigger and it's going to be able to hook up right to the battery, and we're going to run the power for the pump through this, like I said, switched by the factory wiring, so that anytime the factory pump would have been on, this is going to be on. Next, we've got our Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator. This one is a 13-13-9. You can get them in different options, but I went with the -8 for your inlets, and then I went with the -6 for the return. So we are still waiting on the ORB fittings for that. Then we've got our gauge that goes for the pressure regulator. You can get some kits where this comes with fittings and a gauge. The one I wanted did not though. So this gauge, the reason I went with it is because I remember a while back Motion Raceworks did a video talking about the pressure relief on the Aeromotive gauge. And I believe it was Aeromotive. It might have been a different brand, but they were pretty adamant that you should have a gauge with the pressure release so that with fuel temperature differences and things like that, you can hit this, balance the pressure, and your gauge should read more accurate. So we went with that as well from Summit. Then we've got our return line. This is all Fragola stuff. Yes, I am using SPELAB for feed and Fragola for return. I would have liked to had Fragola for the feed at least, if not the whole system, but I'm not going to lie, guys, just this hose is the same price, if not more, than this entire kit from SPELAB. So I happen to have this 20-foot roll laying around, so I figured that I might as well use and just get some fittings. And then I had nothing for -8 on hand, so I went ahead and ordered the SPELAB stuff. So let's go ahead and get this car back up on stands and get after it. Alright guys, so we pretty much have our tank situated here. We've got our wiring bulkhead for power and ground to the pump, and we've got our -8 feed, and then we've got our -6 return, which I showed you guys. This one goes to a line very similar to the one coming off the pump, but I just ran it up against the baffle and down so that hopefully when the fuel is returning, it gets dumped right back into fuel so it doesn't aerate it. And then here we are still going to use our factory connector for the fuel level sensor. So hopefully that all works out good. And then we've got some bulkheads here. This one is an Aeromotive -8 bulkhead. Not sure if you guys are able to see that or not. And then we've got a -6 bulkhead here. This one is as well Aeromotive. And then we have a little 1/4 inch quick connect, and we're going to be using this for our meth line. So I think these ones are more meant for air, but we're going to try it out and see what happens. Worst case scenario, we will go a different route. So the plan for these are, if we set the tank up here, and we're gonna take some measurements and see how everything lands, but just eyeballing it quick, I think what I'm gonna do is take our bulkhead fittings and put one here, one here, one here, so that it looks nice and uniform and the lines are pretty much in line, because we wanna mount our meth tank back here too. So let's go ahead and get the pump set in here and the other stuff, the brace and things like that, and then we will see how this thing lands. All right, guys, so you can see all of our bulkheads are hooked up. We got the ones in the tank and the ones I just made. I was trying to make those level. They came out level this way, but I was trying to center the hole so they were like all centered. It didn't really work out how I wanted to, but it still looks decent. I just didn't want it to look doofy. Like I said, they are level, they just aren't centered, if that makes sense. So now it's time to make some lines up. We're gonna do the PTFE lines. We're gonna go straight off of here, and then we're gonna just kind of twist or bend the line a little bit down to a couple 90s here. And then this one, we're gonna wait until we get our everything done with the fuel system, so we can mount our meth tank here, our meth pump down here, and then just run the 1/4 inch nylon hose that comes with the meth kit over to this one, and then we can pick those up on the other side of that sheet metal under the car and run all of our lines to the front. So let's go ahead and start making some lines. I'm gonna go ahead and steal our ID 1050 injectors out of here and put them in this manifold, and then sadly these holly rails that I have aren't gonna work on here. I could make my own bracket, but it would just be a lot more work than it's worth. So we're just gonna go ahead and use the rails that came with the manifold kit. They don't look bad. I still think it looks a lot better than the stock manifold. So let's go ahead and get set up, and we will start swapping the injectors and getting this thing assembled. Alright, so we've got this thing most of the way dressed here, and what's going on is there's like a gap. I don't know if you guys, hold on, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like a gap where the brackets for the fuel rails bolt up, and what's happening is when you go to tighten it down, like I have it, there's not really much of an adjustment. There's just like a tiny little slot, I guess you guys could call it, on this piece, and there's not much room for adjustment. And the problem I'm having is when you tighten it, it's trying to pull the whole rail in like that, and it's like putting the injector against the wall, which I don't like. So what I did was I went down and got some little washers, and I'm gonna put them between this bracket here and the pedestal and tighten them down on that so that it holds them more straight. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop these back off, and we will get the washers in there and see if it straightens out our issue. So we pretty much got it set up how I'm gonna do it for now. I mean, it's not ideal obviously, but it's gonna have to work for what we're doing. Regulator got mounted a little while ago. Now what we have to do is go ahead and mount our -8 fittings into both ends of both rails and run our feed line. We have our feed line coming up the back here. Not sure if you guys can see it back there, but it comes up the back and we have it wide in the back. And then we're gonna run from the Y to each rail, and then the fuel would flow forward, and we're gonna have it come out of both rails at the front here, go under the intake manifold, back around. I'm gonna have it come down kind of over here, and then into each side of this fuel pressure regulator. And then we have our -6 return on the bottom of the regulator. So we're gonna go ahead and start by making the lines that go to the front of the rails to the regulator because they're longer, and then the pieces that go from the Y to the back of the rails are actually going to be pretty short pieces. So I figure I might as well do the 2 longer lines first, and then I'll have all the leftovers to play with, just in case I want to like mock some stuff up or if I got to change something around. So I think that's going to be our best way to do this. So let's go ahead and make it happen. As you guys can see, I've got one line made here that is going to go from the front of this rail under the intake manifold and then to the pressure regulator over there. And then I've got another line up there that I made that is going to go from the front of this rail under the intake manifold to the pressure regulator right there. And then we have our feed line that comes from the back of the car. It comes from the tank under the car. I have it coming up right in there, and then it goes back behind the engine into a Y. Not sure if you guys can see it, but the Y's right here, and I've got the line that goes to the back of the driver's side rail hooked up, just loosely for now. And then I've still got to make the line that goes from this side of the Y to the back of this rail. All of this stuff is -8 PTFE. And then we've got to do all of our return side stuff still. That's going to go off of the -6 port on the bottom of this pressure regulator, down under the car, back to the back of the tank there. So let me go ahead and show you guys what we've got going on in the back. What we've got going on back here is we've got the bulkhead here that runs to our pump. It is a -8 bulkhead, and then I made a line that comes down and goes to another bulkhead, and then we just ran the line up to the front of the car. Then we're going to do something very similar with the 6 return. I'm going to run that from here down to this bulkhead right here, and then this one is going to be for our meth system. It's just a little 1/4-inch quick connect for the hard nylon hose. So I'm thinking it's going to come out pretty decent. Alright guys, so we're just buttoning up the fuel system here. A few little things left to do. I went ahead and got some small vacuum line here and just hooked it up to the boost reference port on the fuel pressure regulator. And now I'm just going to run it along with the factory harness over to this vacuum block, and we'll get it 90'd in and hooked up to that block, and that should be about it for the vacuum side. Alright guys, so we've got a pretty big moment here as far as the fuel system is concerned, and I'm pretty excited. As you guys know, if you've seen the multiple videos that we have put out on the fuel system for this car, we did the Walbro 525 in the tank, made a return style fuel system with bulkheads in the stock tank, ran them all the way to the front here, did a Y so that we could run a line into the back of each rail, and then the fuel comes out of the front of both rails right here and here, goes under the manifold and comes to the fuel pressure regulator, which from there it has the -6 return line that goes all the way back to the tank. And then we had to modify the actual fuel pump basket and everything to fit the Walbro 525. So what we're going to do right now is throw some fuel in this thing and make sure that our level sensor is working, as well as we have no leaks at the neck or anywhere else on the tank itself. And then once we know that our fuel gauge is working, we'll go ahead and throw the fuse in there for the pump itself and see if we get fuel pressure and check for leaks. So let's go ahead and throw some fuel in this thing. Alright guys, so I just wanted to go ahead and show you guys that the fuel gauge is on E with the car powered up and everything. Ignore some of the messages that might pop up. We still have some stuff disconnected. But as you can see, the fuel level gauge is bottomed right out on E right now. So let's go ahead and put 5 gallons in this thing and see what happens. This is just one of those pumps that I use at the track for putting ethanol into the HELLCAT. It's a lot easier than a funnel. This one's extendable. It's actually really handy to have around. I don't see any leaks yet. Nothing dripping or anything like that yet. Well, let's go ahead and put this 5 gallons in and see what happens. Alright guys, I just got done putting the full 5 gallons in there. I haven't seen any leaks or drips or anything like that. Nothing feels wet where I can tell or feel. I'm not seeing any issues, luckily. So I'm going to take one more peek under the car here, and then we'll go turn the key. Yeah, I don't see any drips, so that's a huge plus. But let's go ahead and turn the key again and cross our fingers and hope that gauge comes up. Might not come up much. If it doesn't come up this time, I might put more fuel in it. But if it does, that'd be awesome. If not, we'll try a little bit more fuel before we worry about it being a problem. Because we've only got those 5 gallons and it was bone dry. So let's go ahead and try it. Oh, it's working. It worked. It says it's got a 1/4 tank. That's awesome. Hell yeah. Alright guys, so we are finally about to kick the key on and see if we get fuel pressure and if we have any leaks. See if we hear the pump. I definitely hear it. We've got some fuel pressure. It's at 40 right now. It sounded like it kicked on and then shut back off. Not seeing any leaks. Definitely seems like it's holding that pressure. Let's go take a look in the back and see if we've got any leaks back there. I don't feel any. I don't see any. Oh, I do feel one right here, guys. Alright, so we'll have to check that out. Not a big deal. We can remake that if we have to. We'll try tightening it up first, but let's keep taking a look around and see if we find any other issues. I don't see any other one, guys. I'm going to go ahead and cycle that pump again and check anywhere else. And then I think I'm also going to see if I can tighten that fitting up a little bit and see if that helps. Alright guys, so a quick little update here on the leak that we had found. It's kind of strange because it's not leaking out of anything that we assembled, like where you make the fitting in the line here. It's actually leaking down here out of where the nut mates to the actual fitting, like when you tighten it down, because this nut has to be able to spin freely on there, obviously, so you can tighten it. But that's where it's leaking from, which is really strange. So I took it apart. We tried to clean it, check it out, see if there was any obvious signs of why it was leaking like that, and we can't find anything. So I put it back on, tightened it way down, and I am still getting a leak out of it. But I did go ahead and order another set of fittings and a piece of hose. This one we got from Racetronics because the only line left on the car from SPELAB is the main line that runs all the way from the trunk to the front of the car. And I'm just not really all that impressed with the SPELAB stuff. It is cheaper, so I guess you get what you pay for in that aspect. But the Racetronics stuff is pretty budget friendly too, and I've been pretty happy with it. So let's go ahead and remake that line out of the Racetronics stuff and see if we can get rid of that leak. Alright guys, so I got this new line made. I've got it hooked up to the garden hose right now. We're going to pressure check it and see if we have any leaks on this one. And then if it's all good, we're going to go ahead and flush it with water and get this thing cleaned up so we can put it on. If you guys haven't seen this kit before, I got mine from Fragola. It makes it so that you can put all different size ANs on a garden hose so that you can flush them and pressure check them. I like it a lot. I definitely recommend flushing it one way or another, whether you disconnect it at the rails and flush the whole system by using the fuel pump, or you do it a way like this with water. I prefer this way. The fuel system's super dirty when you first put it together, so definitely recommend doing this. So let's go ahead and kick the water on. Nothing seems wet, so let's go ahead and pop this cap off and we'll flush it real quick and go throw this thing on. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and turn the water on here and flush this line out. Shows you how much a Dash 8 fuel line can really flow though. Flows quite a bit of fuel. Water in this case, but you get what I mean. Alright, so that should be pretty good. Let's go ahead and kill the water. Let this thing dry a minute, maybe blow it out, and go throw it on the car. Alright, so as you guys had seen, we went ahead and made this Dash 8 feed line. We no longer have a leak anymore down here at the fitting, so that's pretty cool. We also went ahead and checked the rest of the fuel system. We don't seem to have any leaks anywhere else. The fuel pressure regulator is holding pressure for quite a long time. It does bleed off after a while, but I'm pretty sure that that's normal. Like I said, we've been looking everywhere. We haven't found any leaks yet. So we're pretty much ready to move on to the next project. You guys can see behind me here, we've been working on the exhaust. We've been making a full 3-inch system from the headers back. We're running a Cook's axle back on this car. It came off of the red GTO, but we didn't really have any 3-inch stuff to put in between it, so we went ahead and made it ourselves. So you guys will see that in an upcoming video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please think about sharing it with a family member or friend. Also think about subscribing and ringing the bell, and we will catch you guys on the next one.